You know what's interesting about people who don't use social media? We rarely understand them. In a world where most people document meals, share opinions, and scroll before bed, the person who simply opts out feels almost mysterious. We assume they're either hiding something, deeply anxious, or just out of touch. But psychology research tells a more interesting story. People who deliberately avoid social media often share a distinct set of cognitive and behavioral patterns. And once you understand them, you start to wonder, who's actually thinking more clearly here? Here are 8 psychological traits commonly found in people who avoid social media. The first is a high tolerance for missing out. Most people experience FOMO, the fear of missing out, as a genuine emotional discomfort. But chronic social media avoiders tend to have what psychologists call a stronger internal locus of control. They measure their lives against their own standards, not against a curated highlight reel. Missing a viral moment simply doesn't register as a loss. The second is deep discomfort with performance. Social media is, at its core, a stage, and some people are psychologically wired to find that exhausting. Research on self-presentation theory suggests that constantly managing how others perceive you online is genuinely cognitively draining. People who avoid social media often report that they find the performance of identity, the captions, the angles, the personal brand, fundamentally uncomfortable. Not out of shyness, out of a deep preference for authenticity over image. The third is stronger present moment awareness. When you're not reaching for your phone to document an experience, you're actually inside it. Studies on mindfulness suggest that people who spend less time on social media report higher levels of present moment engagement. The meal gets tasted, the conversation gets heard, the walk actually happens. It's less of a personality trait and more of a cognitive habit, attention that hasn't been trained to constantly seek external validation. The fourth is a high sensitivity to emotional noise. Social media is an endless stream of other people's emotions: outrage, joy, anxiety, grief, opinion, delivered without context and without pause. Psychologists have documented something called emotional contagion, where we unconsciously absorb the emotional states around us. People who avoid social media are often acutely aware of this. Their nervous systems are sensitive enough that they recognize the drain before most people do. The fifth is comfort with being misunderstood. Here's an interesting one. In social psychology, there's a well-documented need for belonging, a drive to signal our values, humor, and identity to our social group. Social media is one of the most efficient tools humans have ever built for doing exactly that. So people who walk away from it have to be comfortable with a quieter kind of social presence. They don't need the signal to be seen by many. They're okay being slightly invisible to the crowd. The sixth is a tendency toward long-form thinking. Social media rewards fast, reactive, emotionally charged content. The algorithm has no patience for nuance. People who find that environment unsatisfying often do so because their natural cognitive style runs in the opposite direction: slow, layered, context-heavy thinking. They're the ones who would rather finish a book than win an argument in the comments. The seventh is a deep skepticism of engineered environments. Many social media avoiders aren't technophobes. They understand, often quite precisely, how these platforms are designed: the variable reward loops, the engagement optimization, the architecture of addiction. And knowing that, they choose not to participate. This reflects a kind of metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe a system from the outside and make a deliberate choice about whether to enter it. And lastly, there's that quiet, unconventional confidence. In 2026, not being on social media is a social statement, whether you intend it or not. People will question you. They'll assume you're missing out, falling behind, or being difficult. Holding that position without defensiveness, without needing to justify it constantly, requires a stable sense of self that doesn't depend on external visibility. That's rarer than it sounds. Now consider what we usually assume about these people. We call them antisocial, avoidant, weird, out of touch. But sometimes what looks like withdrawal is actually something else entirely: a preference for depth over volume, for presence over performance, for a life that doesn't need an audience to feel real. And maybe that's worth thinking about the next time you find yourself reaching for your phone, not because something happened, just because nothing was.